Looking back now, I don't think the hardest part of my marriage was the addiction. It wasn't even the arguments, it was the waiting. Waiting for someone to become the person I kept believing they were capable of being. I kept telling myself, once we get through this, once work gets easier, once we're settled, once we have our first child, once we have our own space, once the addiction ends, once enough time passes, then everything will finally become what I always believed it could be. For years, hope kept moving the finish line, and every time I reached it, another one appeared. People often ask, why didn't you leave sooner? For a long time, I didn't know how to answer that. Because from the outside, it probably looked obvious. But from the inside, nothing felt obvious. The hardest relationships aren't always the ones where someone hurts you every day. Sometimes they're the ones where just enough good moments appear to make you question every painful one. One beautiful conversation, one apology, one promise, one weekend where things finally feel normal. Just enough to make you believe, maybe this is the turning point. Then something happens, and you're back where you started. I didn't realize it then, but I had slowly stopped building my life around what was happening. I had started building it around what I hoped would happen. And those are two very different things. One afternoon, when I was about 4 months pregnant with our son, my parents, my 5-year-old daughter, and I were out running errands together. On the drive home, our car broke down. We were only about 15 minutes away from my apartment. My dad immediately called my brother. Within minutes, they were both trying to figure out how to move the car. No one asked whose responsibility it was. No one complained. They simply started helping. As it got later, I looked over at my daughter. She was exhausted. I was pregnant. I just wanted to get her home. So I called my husband. He was already home. I explained what had happened. Dad and my brother would stay with the car. Could he please come pick us up? He told me he was in the bathroom. He needed another 10 minutes. I said, "That's okay. We'll wait." A few minutes later, he said he was tired from work. I remember hoping, not that he would come because I demanded it, but because surely, once he understood the situation, he would want to. Almost without thinking, I asked, should I just Uber home? I wasn't really asking because I wanted to. I think I was giving him one more opportunity to say, "No, stay where you are, I'm coming." Instead, he simply said, "Yeah, just Uber." I remember staring at my phone, pregnant, my daughter beside me, night beginning to fall, only 15 minutes away, and somehow, my husband believed that was a reasonable solution. My dad and brother dropped me. They refused I take an Uber. But looking back now, what hurt the most was that my own family hadn't even expected him to come. Without anyone saying it out loud, they had already learned not to rely on him. I was the last person still believing that this time would be different. At the time, I defended him. I told myself work had been difficult. I told myself everyone gets tired. I told myself marriage requires patience. And it does. Healthy marriages require patience. But patience should never require someone to repeatedly convince themselves that disappointment is normal. I couldn't see it then. I thought I was protecting my marriage. Looking back, I was protecting my hope. And hope can be a beautiful thing, unless it keeps asking you to ignore reality. The frightening thing about repeated disappointment isn't that it hurts, it's that eventually, it quietly changes what you expect from the people you love. At first, you expect someone to show up. Eventually, you're simply grateful if they do. And that change happened so slowly, I never even noticed it. The night before my birthday, my husband made me a promise. He told me money was tight. We couldn't afford anything extravagant. I smiled and told him that didn't matter. It never had. He looked at me and said, "Tomorrow is your day. We'll spend it together, the three of us." Looking back now, I realize how little I was asking for. I didn't want gifts. I didn't want expensive dinners. I didn't even need a cake. I simply wanted my husband to spend the day with me. The next morning, my daughter woke me up around 8 o'clock. She hugged me and whispered, "Happy birthday, Mama." I still remember thinking, this is going to be a beautiful day. My husband was still asleep. I wasn't worried. He'd be up soon. So Anya and I made breakfast together. We laughed, we cleaned up, we played. 9 o'clock came, then 10. I quietly walked into the bedroom. "Are you getting up soon?" He mumbled, "Soon." So we waited. 11 o'clock, then noon. By lunchtime, it was still just the two of us. I remember trying to think of little games to play because I had run out of ways to keep Anya busy. Every now and then, one of us would try waking him again. Just a little longer. Eventually, around 1:30, he finally got out of bed. For a brief moment, I felt relieved. Finally, our day could begin. Instead, he went to shower. Then he stayed in the bathroom. I remember looking at the clock, then looking at Anya, then back at the clock again. When he finally came out, it was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Without a word, he went into the kitchen. 8 hours. Almost my entire birthday had disappeared. Not because of an emergency. Not because someone was sick. Not because something unexpected had happened. Because he simply chose to stay in bed. I remember taking Anya outside for a walk, because I could feel everything inside me building. I didn't want her to watch me lose my patience. When we came back, I finally asked him, "How do you think this is okay?" I wasn't yelling. I genuinely wanted to understand. His answer left me speechless. Instead of apologizing, he looked at me as though I was the unreasonable one. "There are still 5 hours left before you go to bed." 5 hours. I remember standing there unable to find the right words. Because the issue wasn't that there were 5 hours left. The issue was that the promise had already been broken. The entire day we were supposed to spend together had become a day my daughter and I spent waiting. What hurt even more was realizing that if he had simply been honest the night before, I would have happily spent my birthday with my parents. I wouldn't have been disappointed. I wasn't asking him for perfection. I was asking him for honesty. Looking back now, I think that's when something inside me quietly began to change. The disappointment hurt, but what hurt even more was being made to feel guilty for feeling disappointed. Instead of hearing, "I'm sorry," I heard, "You're ungrateful." Somehow, my completely normal reaction became the problem, and that's a confusing place to live, because you don't just question the other person anymore. You begin questioning yourself. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe birthdays aren't that important. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm being unfair. Those thoughts didn't stay attached to my birthday. They quietly followed me into every part of our marriage. As time went on, I have learned that our minds naturally try to make sense of contradictions. When someone's words repeatedly say, "I love you," but their actions repeatedly leave you feeling unimportant, your brain works overtime trying to make both things true at the same time. So instead of questioning the relationship, you begin questioning your own expectations. That was exactly what I was doing. I wasn't lowering my standards because I believed I deserved less. I was lowering them because every disappointment came wrapped inside another explanation, another apology, another promise, another reason to hope. And hope kept convincing me that the next time would finally be different. Looking back now, disappointment no longer surprised me. It became familiar, and familiar things have a dangerous way of starting to feel normal. Earlier in my marriage, when I was pregnant with Anya, my cousin was having her baby shower. Family had gathered, friends were there. Some of his relatives had already arrived. Everyone kept asking, "Is he coming?" I smiled and said, "Yes. He'll be here." Because that's what he had told me. Later, I received a message. He had slipped after work. His foot hurt. He couldn't make it. Of course, I believed him. If someone you love tells you they're injured, your first instinct isn't suspicion, it's concern. Later, I found out he had gone to spend time with his friends instead. Looking back, it wasn't just another broken promise. It was another moment where reality quietly shifted beneath my feet. Not long after that came our own baby shower, our first, the one celebrating our daughter before she was even born. My family was there, my cousins, my friends. Some of his family had arrived too. Everyone waited. People kept looking toward the door. Eventually, he and his mother walked in, among the last to arrive. Again, I immediately searched for an explanation. Traffic, something unexpected. There had to be a reason. That's what I had become good at. Finding explanations. Not because anyone asked me to, because when you love someone, your heart naturally tries to protect the image you have of them. Years later, I came across the work of psychologist Leon Festinger, who introduced the idea of cognitive dissonance. It's what happens when two opposing realities exist at the same time. Someone tells you they love you, yet repeatedly behaves in ways that leave you feeling forgotten. Your mind doesn't like contradictions, so it starts trying to resolve them. They love me. They're just stressed. They care. They're just overwhelmed. They didn't mean it. It'll be different next time. Looking back, I don't think I kept making excuses because I was weak. I think my mind was desperately trying to preserve the future I had built in my imagination. Then our daughter was born. In our culture, it's common for a new mother to spend about 40 days recovering with her own parents. It's supposed to be a season of healing, a season where a new family grows closer. I remember believing those 40 days would bring us together. Instead, I mostly waited. Most days he didn't come. Some days he came for only a short time. Then one evening he finally arrived. I remember feeling relieved. Our little family was together. For a while. Then his phone rang. It was his mother. She knew exactly where he was. She knew he was with his wife. She knew he was holding his newborn daughter. She asked him to come home. Why? Because she had heard a noise in the backyard. A noise. Nothing had happened. She had simply heard something. Without hesitation. He left. 25 minutes there, 25 minutes back, just to check a noise. But he never came back. I remember sitting there holding our baby after the front door closed. I wasn't angry. I was heartbroken. Not because he had gone to help his mother. If there had truly been an emergency, I would have encouraged him to go. What broke my heart was realizing how easily our family could be interrupted. How quickly our needs moved aside whenever someone else's appeared. I kept telling myself, it's just one evening. It's only 40 days. We'll have the rest of our lives. But healing has taught me something. We don't experience life in years. We experience it in ordinary days. And ordinary days eventually become our lives. Looking back, I wasn't grieving one interrupted visit. I was grieving the family I kept believing we were about to become. Because every promise painted another picture, and every action quietly erased it. Years after that, I left for a week because his gaming addiction got out of hand. But I returned home because my husband made another promise. He called me and told me that I mattered more than his games and asked me to come back home. He knew how much gaming had damaged our relationship. He knew I had reached a point where I couldn't keep living the way we had been. He told me, I just want my family back. I'll stop. I wanted to believe him. Not because I was naive, because when someone you love finally says the words you've been praying to hear, hope naturally begins to breathe again. So I went home. That same night, he asked if he could play. I remember staring at him in disbelief. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Then he said something I'll never forget. If you really loved me, you wouldn't ask me to give up my hobby. I remember thinking, how did we get here so quickly? Just hours ago, I mattered more than the games. Now, asking him to keep the promise he had freely made somehow became evidence that I didn't love him enough. Looking back now, I realized that wasn't really a conversation about gaming. It was another example of how quickly reality could change. One moment I was being told I was the most important thing in his life. The next, I was defending why I believed his own promise should mean something. Not long after that, another moment happened that stayed with me for years. After one of our separations, we had agreed to keep trying to work on our marriage. We met at the mall with our daughter. I was 8 months pregnant with our son. I remember feeling hopeful. We weren't together, but at least we were talking. At least we were trying. A week earlier, he had complimented my WhatsApp profile pictures. He told me they looked beautiful. Then suddenly, while we were walking through the mall, something changed. Those exact same pictures became the reason he accused me of cheating. He convinced himself I had uploaded attractive pictures to get the attention of other men. Standing there, 8 months pregnant, holding our daughter's hand, I was called dirty, filthy, accused of entertaining other men. Not because he had found evidence, because his own thoughts had convinced him it must be true. I remember looking at him wondering how the same photographs could go from something he admired to proof that I had betrayed him in only a matter of days. That moment left me with a question I couldn't answer. How do you defend yourself against someone's imagination? How do you prove your innocence when the accusation wasn't built on facts to begin with? You can't. And that's one of the most exhausting places a person can live, because eventually you stop trying to understand the accusations, and you start wondering whether you're somehow responsible for them. All this while I was pregnant, going to school full-time, and raising our daughter, a time where a husband should admire my strength and efforts. He was breaking me down, a person still standing in front of him giving him chance after chance, and that is how he repays me. Then our son was born. He arrived early. He spent time in the NICU. Those days were some of the hardest of my life. I wasn't only recovering from childbirth, I was recovering from surgery while worrying about a premature baby. More than ever, I wanted his father to be present. After the incident at the mall, I had cut him off and set boundaries for my sanity in my third trimester and my last semester in school. But I picked up the phone the day our son was born, telling myself that if I were the father, I would want to know over the phone the good news. I called him and told him, I delivered early via emergency C-section. I came out of surgery 3 hours ago. I am still shaking and in shock. I haven't even met him. They took him to the NICU. His reply? Oh, I thought you were calling me to have Anya speak to me. I still can't explain what I felt, but I made sense of it by telling myself, he is still using. He must be under the influence. He never visited his own son, later justifying it by saying I never updated him when he came out of the NICU, as if again he had no responsibility to find anything out on his own. It was always mine. I kept thinking. I kept waiting for fatherhood to change something. It didn't. Months passed. Life became quieter. I slowly accepted that perhaps our marriage was finally over. And strangely, there was peace in that acceptance. I wasn't waiting anymore. Or at least, I thought I wasn't. Then one day, after weeks of silence, he messaged and wanted a phone call. His voice sounded different, calmer, gentler. He asked how I was doing. He asked about the children. Then he said something I never expected to hear. I still love you. We're so stupid for letting things get this bad. For the first time in months, I heard the man I had spent years hoping would stay. Not the angry version, not the accusing version, not the distant version. The version who sounded remorseful. The version who spoke about family. The version who made me believe that maybe everything we had been through had finally taught him something. Maybe my son will finally have a present father. Looking back now, I don't think hope returned because I was weak. Hope returned because that's what hope does. It looks for life. It looks for change. It looks for reasons to believe tomorrow can be different from yesterday, the very next day. He asked me for a favor. He wanted me to sign a document stating that he financially supported me and the children. Even though he didn't, he explained that if I signed it, he would receive more government funding to be able to go back to school and provide for me and the kids and our future life. Then he told me, if I get more money, I'll send more to the kids every month. Something didn't sit right with me. I worked so hard for this life. I am working so hard as a single mother. Why would I jeopardize that? I read the document, I thought about it, and I refused. I was confident. almost overnight. The man I had spoken to the day before disappeared. The loving husband who wanted reconciliation became someone else entirely. Suddenly, I was selfish, ungrateful. He told me I didn't deserve reconciliation. The insults returned. The vulgar language returned. The kindness disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. I remember sitting there thinking, again? The answer was painfully simple. He didn't get what he wanted. That realization shook me, because it forced me to ask a question I had avoided for years. Was reconciliation ever really the goal? Or was reconciliation only welcome when it led to the outcome he wanted? It was used as manipulation? Before I had time to process that question, something happened that became one of the lowest moments of my entire life. 2 days later, my phone lit up again. He told me he was sitting outside a police station. He said he had recordings, messages, conversations from times I had become upset during our marriage. He told me he was about to go inside. He said he would give me a criminal record because I pushed him once, that my schooling would be ruined, that I could lose my children. He gave me 5 minutes to call him, or he was walking inside. I remember staring at the screen, not crying, not panicking, just staring, desensitized. How had we gone from, I love you, we should fix our marriage, to, I'm about to destroy your life, in the space of only a few days? But I did nothing. No reaction. No panic. And then, just when I thought I had finally seen the worst, the cycle repeated itself one more time. A few days later, another message appeared. He told me he hadn't gone through with it. Not because it was wrong, not because he realized what he had done. He said he didn't do it because he loved me too much, as if he did me a favor, because he still saw light at the end of the tunnel, because he still believed we could reconcile. He asked if I would just call him, even for 5 minutes. He even told me to record the conversation if that made me feel safer. I remember putting my phone down. It was happening again, and this time I won't let it. And for the first time in years, something inside me became completely still. Not because I finally understood him, because I finally understood the pattern. For years, I had believed I was waiting for a different future. The truth was, I was waiting for a different person, and those are not the same thing. That was the moment everything changed for me. Not because I stopped loving him, not because I stopped believing that people can change, but because I finally understood that love cannot be built on potential. A marriage cannot survive on promises that disappear the moment they're tested. Real change isn't measured by beautiful conversations. It's measured by consistent actions. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. One of the strongest findings in behavioral psychology is that unpredictable rewards often keep us attached longer than consistent ones. It's one of the reasons gambling is so addictive. You don't win every time. You win just often enough to believe the next win is coming. Looking back, I don't think I stayed because I was foolish. I stayed because every apology reset my hope before reality had time to settle. Every promise convinced me to start over. Every glimpse of the man I loved made me believe he was finally here to stay. Until one day, I stopped asking, what is he promising? And I started asking, what pattern has he consistently shown me? That question changed my life, because promises tell us who someone wants to be. Patterns reveal who they repeatedly choose to be. What saved me wasn't losing hope. It was learning where to place it. Not in someone's potential, not in the next promise, but in truth. God asks us to forgive. God asks us to be patient. But nowhere does God ask us to ignore reality, for far too long. I confused hope with evidence. I thought another promise meant another beginning. I thought another apology meant another future. Looking back, I never gave up on love. I was finally giving myself permission to build my life on something stronger than hope alone. I was building it on truth, and in hindsight, that truth didn't just save my future, it saved my children. Most importantly, it saved me.